go. I go here. I go there. And we should be going up live. And Trevor will let us know when the first people join. Because it is 4 o'clock on the dot. And Trevor doesn't have anything to say.
It's just started. It's going to take a minute.
It's spooling up. Spooling up. So you got to get one of these fancy mics like I have.
Why, my audio sucks?
No, your audio's just fine, actually. Because it's not going to move around because you're holding it in your hand.
Well, no, I got Tara's MacBook.
Oh, okay. That works even better, yeah.
So now I got my device here, and Tara was kind enough to let me use her.
Okay, we'll kind of slowly work our way into it because people start joining at 4 o'clock, so they're going to start popping in as we're talking and all. So, afternoon, everybody. Evening, depending where you are. I haven't seen Ireland join us yet, or Australia. So, as we get ready to move into it, this evening's guest, if you were paying attention, is my former co-star from Legend of the Superstition Mountains, the one, the only, the very well-spoken, Eric A. Real Deal Deleel. That's a mouthful. Or as Frank refers to him, Eric Deleo. So,
I've heard worse.
Well, yeah, Deleo. Someone said they're arrow hunting all day. Well, that's great. Okay. And yeah, you can't see the thing, and I'll let you know if anything questions comes up. They're out there in the chat room, which they're just chatting away. Howdy, guys. Welcome, Real Deal. Where the hell did they come up with that, Eric? Was that just pulled out of the air? Because they threw that at us, and we had nothing but like... I know it was because there's 2 Erics. But why did you become Real Deal Deleel? That is not from real life, is it?
No.
Good story. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
What was the guy's name who basically cast us all?
Frank Prather.
Yep, Frank. Nice guy. When I was in the casting process, he asked, he said, there's another Eric who's already been cast on the show. Do you have any nicknames you'd rather go by? And I said nothing that I would want anybody to call me on TV. So he's like, well, what if we call you like, because of my last name, Deleel. He's like, what if we call you like the Real Deal? Like, we just call you Deal. And I said, if you get me on this show, you can call me Shirley, put me in a tutu and run me around the desert, and I'll be there.
We did do that, by the way, folks, and we didn't air it.
No, it never happened.
But it was a problem because as we started to film, because the first couple of days of filming, you guys didn't do much. They ran me around ragged, and then they brought you guys out because you didn't show up on camera till the quarter circle U, correct?
Yeah, and I wasn't involved with the pilot either.
Yeah.
Apparently, they didn't have the casting right, and the network executives or whoever, the powers that be, didn't like the guy that I actually replaced, who I never met. I'm sure he was a nice enough guy. I heard he was like a Canadian archaeologist or something. Maybe you can add something to that.
I don't really know who they had in mind. They gave us a list of names, and I would say the first list of 15 names, I never even met 10 of them. They didn't even come in for the casting calls or the pilots.
Well, I mean, you guys shot a pilot, and I know there was quite a few people there who didn't make the cut, and I never even got to get on camera and shoot a pilot. So basically, it was just on my Skype with Frank, the agent or whatever you want to call him, alone with some of my YouTube stuff that I had done previously, which was basically just me by myself or me and a friend with a camera out in the California motherlode, hunting for gold. So that was it for me. And they liked me enough to say, okay, we're going to take a shot on you. And they put a plane ticket in my inbox. And if you remember, at the time, I actually had dreadlocks, which you never got to see in person. But they told me, if you don't cut your dreadlocks off, don't get on the plane. So I did, and I went. And here we are 8 years later.
Yeah, when we did the pilot, They had no idea what they're doing, and I never understood the whole thing because in the end, they tried to get us to call you the real deal, and we couldn't remember it. I don't know if you remember that part, but it was too much for us. It was like real deal Deleel. That's way too much. That's like a tongue twister, especially when you're trying to remember other stuff, and it's first time for everybody pretty much in front of the camera. So then it became the deal, Eric the Deal Deleel, which is still stupid. So we ended up calling Magnuson Mags and called you Eric.
Which ultimately would have been the best solution to start with. And as you know, as far as TV goes, continuity is everything, and also keeping everything simple. So whether it's you wear the same clothes from day one to the end, it doesn't have to be the same actual, you can wash your clothes, but you have to wear the same thing. So if they have to piece something together, it's continuity, right? And so ultimately, yeah, if we would have just called Magnuson Mags and called me Eric instead of the real deal Deleel, which Frank could never get out of his mouth, and always turned into something else. And, Frank's doing on the fly interviews, and he'd have to do them 10 times because he couldn't say deal, and he'd have to say the real Deleo or whatever. So it would have been a lot more simple had they just called Magnuson Mags, which we all called him anyway.
And that's what, if you actually watch the show in the end, most of the time we call you Eric and call him Mags or Magnuson. That's just how we separated. You were the more likable Eric, so we just called you Eric. But and we barely, and the weird part about it was we barely met Magnuson the first time around. It was just, it ended up, it was me, and then they added Frank and Woody, then they added Magnuson, and then, you remember how we met?
Yeah, I do.
Let's see where your memory is.
How could I forget, Wayne? How could I forget meeting the infamous Wayne Tuttle? We were at Gold Canyon Golf Resort in our powwow room, basically. So if you were gonna, kind of liken it to something, it'd be like, the meeting room or the war room on another show. That was our meeting room. We'd meet there in the mornings. I met you, it was the afternoon, probably about 2:00. I flew into Phoenix, got picked up by a PA. He brought me there right to the meeting room. And I remember meeting you. And one of the first things I said to you was, you said, "Who is this guy?" And I go, "Well, they said they couldn't get the cast right, so they brought in a pro," or some BS like that. And although my mom's not going to like this, and granted it was 8 or 9 years ago, the first thing that you said was, "Oh, you smoke. Well, at least we have something in common," and you liked me right away.
Well, that was the thing, because I don't know if you remember later that evening as you were wandering around, and I was sitting on my patio of my room, and I went, "Hey!" And then I told you, "Get over here." And we sat on the patio and smoked it up and hung out there, and you saw my room, and then you were like, what the hell? Because remember that room I had? It was like... And I traded that room in because I didn't want it. I ended up being your roommate. Well, not roomies, but we were next door neighbors after that. Yeah. So me, you, and Ian were down there. But, that room was like way too much. It was like a room for a family.
Did you have a hot tub in the middle of it? Or was it
I had a hot tub, a fireplace, a couch, had a king-size bed, a spare shower. It was like
they gave you the honeymoon suite.
Except the one thing they didn't give me was a table. The one thing I wanted was a table so I could put my laptop down and work. And so I switched rooms primarily because I wanted a room where I could work when I wasn't filming. And so they were like, rather than bring a table in, I said, give it to one of the production guys, because those guys work really hard. And I said, we'll swap rooms, and I'll go down whatever you got opened up. And then I was fine with the room down there, except you used to remember stand on the bench and look at me when I was taking a shower.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah,
at all.
We had those big walk-in showers, which were really nice.
So if I did that, and it wasn't very memorable what I saw.
And then I discovered there was a window right at the top, and outside there was a bench right under the window. And I kept seeing Deleel's head pop up in it.
Not true.
So.
Not true.
So, but no, and it was kind of a weird, awkward thing too. I think it was the worst for you getting adjusted because you really took you a few days to know anybody. Because I did know Frank casually before that, and we'd been talking a lot before we went to film.
Right.
And I kind of knew Woody from, we worked for a week on the pilot. And I met Magnuson for a couple days at least. I knew who he was. But for you, you got kind of put right in there. And of course, once we start to film, they literally we basically are either on camera together or they stick you guys in my truck with me and we drive around in my truck. So you're like that odd guy suddenly that's thrown in with everybody.
Yeah, I didn't have much time to adjust. I remember the first scene I ever did, which was other than, filming for YouTube, doing small stuff on my own, was the first time I ever had a camera pointed at me. And as you know, it's not just a camera, it's a camera, 2 sound guys, a writer, a director, and maybe a producer. So you got about minimum of 5 to 6 people standing there in front of you. And the weirdest thing was, we were at Goldfield, and you remember that big water tower? We got the picture of Woody underneath.
Taking a shower.
Yeah, we're back there behind the building, and I don't even know what the scene was about because I basically just blacked out. And let's just say that first scene did not make the cut, probably because I was pretty poor at, talking to the camera at that point. But as soon as I figured it out, it was pretty easy and natural. Which, I could usually knock out what I had to say pretty quickly and also add in, ad lib quite a bit because, it's unscripted television, but there's plot points, obviously, and you're given those points. And then in 30 seconds, say what we'd like you to say, but also ad lib. And I end up getting pretty good at that pretty quickly.
You didn't have the notebooks. They brought me notebooks with paragraphs, and I was like, how the hell am I supposed to remember all that? And I would get one from A&E, one from history, one from Bill, and then one from Christian. And they all just wanted me to say something the same way, but in a various different way they wanted me to say it. That was the pain. But, yeah, and then we kicked it off. But, yeah, and what you were saying there is there wasn't much for you to do initially either, because they kind of on the fly were letting everybody fall into place. And Magnuson liked to push himself out there. But for the most part, it was the Wayne and Frank show right off the start. And I remember you complaining, I think it was after a week or two of just, well, you complained about a few things, and they were all valid. I'm not saying you were a whiner. But one of the first things you complained about is you never really did anything on screen. You just were there, and it was like, what's my purpose here and all? And then finally I was able to convince them, because once we went to Black Cross Butte, I got you to go do the assay thing, take you over with Shoes, where Shoes hates you, and then we couldn't take you back. You really did think he didn't like you.
Well, Bob Shoes is an intimidating man, of course, and he's very infamous in those parts. He's a celebrity in his own right, and well-deserved. But yeah, I couldn't get you have this weird thing in the back of your head as to what is real and what is not. And so throw me into that situation in 2 weeks, have me meet Bob Shoes, and in the scene, he's not supposed to like me and trust me. So what am I supposed to believe? So there's it's separating reality from reality television. What's real and what's fake? Took me a minute, but I'll tell you what, if I saw Bob Shoes today or tomorrow, I mean, he's going to shake my hand and give me a hug. I love that man. He's awesome, Yeah.
And it was unfortunate because I think with you and Magnuson is you guys really didn't get to meet Tom Collenborn.
No.
You didn't really get to meet Clay Worst, I don't think.
No.
I mean, a lot of stuff we filmed, and I ended up with a cold because when we first started filming, you guys just stayed at the resort, and they had me running around, and they had me, remember, it poured rain a couple of days there, and then they didn't want me inside and stuff, and they were outfitting my truck with cameras, so I had to just stand in rainstorms, like, for hours. So, remember those jackets they gave us from Carhartt?
No, I don't.
Okay. You didn't get yours? Oh, I had a really nice rain jacket, but I didn't have it with me, and because I didn't expect to stand in the rain all day, and I ended up getting sick in that first week or so. I ended up with a cold, and I had a fever when we were filming. So then there's that classic moment after a couple weeks. You finally realized I had a sense of humor because I was pretty grumpy first week or two. I will admit that. I had a cold. They have a way of pissing you off because they're trying to get you to do stuff and they want you to do stupid stuff. And I was pretty resistant to it. So I wasn't always in particularly the best mood of all. It was more fun when I was working with Tom or Shoes or at Clay's house, where I kind of felt like we were actually doing something kind of made sense to me. But for you guys, since you guys weren't Superstition Mountain guys, you guys didn't know any different. You guys are just there thinking, okay, they want me to say this, it must be true. And for me, it was different. I was like, where the hell did that come from?
I mean, I had to learn a lot before I went out there because I needed to seem like I was, a Dutch hunting expert, or
you're supposed to be a rockhound geology expert on southwestern mineralization or some crap. Yeah, they had you pegged up.
I pretty much fit the bill on that one, but at the same time, regardless of my gold mining background, it doesn't mean I'm an expert in every treasure under the sun. So before I went out, because there was a very little lag time between when I actually got cast and when I was in Arizona. I mean, I'm talking like 8 to 10 days, maybe less. It might've been 5 days. It was like, you're cast on this show. Here's the plane ticket in your inbox. You're going to be on a plane on Thursday. So I had 5 days to prep for this. And I basically promised Frank Prather, the agent, that I would have quite a bit of knowledge when I got there. And what I didn't know, I obviously picked up. And if you ever went to my hotel, my hotel room, I had books everywhere and was researching stuff and trying to figure out what I thought was true and what I thought was BS. And I have those opinions still, now, but I wasn't some, veteran lost Dutchman gold mine hunter, or even an armchair quarterback for this, because people still think I'm from Arizona. Like, I'm from New York. I live in California for 15 years, right near the motherlode of California, where, the major gold strikes were made. But, 1,500 miles away to Arizona doesn't necessarily translate. Then you throw me in with giant tarantulas the size of dinner plates, scorpions everywhere, rattlesnakes, of varying, types and kinds. And it's just, I'd seen 2 rattlesnakes in my whole life. I saw, 18 my first week filming. So
remember when Magnus had almost sat on that scorpion? And I had to tell him there's a scorpion right there.
Because you had your black light and he didn't. And then
no, this was out when we were out by that the mine with the trap in it, with the booby trap. Yeah. So anyways, here's a memory for you to remember. Remember when you walked up and said, "Is this petrified wood?" And Frank said, "No, it's leverite." And you went, "Oh."
Leverite.
Rookie.
And that's when I actually pissed Woody off for the first time, because I was like, I don't think you're right. And then Woody actually explained to me why it wasn't petrified wood. And, to this day, it's a good lesson, I mean, one of my favorite sayings is a smart man learns from his own mistakes and a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So I'm sure Woody made a few mistakes down the road. Anything I can learn from a guy like that, I'm not going to take with a grain of salt.
But what people have to understand is you didn't know that one. I think you were the youngest person in the cast.
I was.
You were thrown in, didn't know anybody. And we weren't very merciful on you sometimes when you did screw up. We had our fun with you. And you had a little cocky confidence where you spoke up when you probably today would say, I should have kept my mouth shut in that moment. Like when we first started to meet up and you were asking Frank, who's this old?
I don't remember any of that.
Remember that out at the quarter circle, you?
Nah,
you don't remember any of that.
I don't
you and Frank
remember.
and Woody and Frank hated you too, and you two hated them, and it was just like me sitting there going, "Oh, this is gonna go great." Because you guys, what they do in television is they try to stir everything up. And not knowing that first week, especially your guys' first day on set, is they fed you food, the sun pops up, and then they just turn you loose and start saying things. They tried it on me. They told me, "Oh, Woody's talking smack about you over there." And I said, "I don't really care. Woody don't know shit. I don't care." It didn't bother me, but for you guys would get going. And, of course, Frank's mouth. The moment Frank thinks you have some kind of weird opinion, that's it. Frank has a comment and a comment and a comment, and we can't even go into what the days of the week were labeled. There was Be Nice Thursday. We can always say Thursday was the Be Nice Thursday. You couldn't say anything bad to each other on that day. Remember that? I had to correct Frank all the time. It's Be Nice Thursday. We're just going to be nice today to each other. Because the rest of the time was pretty much just rip each other to shreds. If you were sensitive, you would not make it through that show. Because you got to admit, it was 6 weeks sometimes of literally... It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and these guys are going after me immediately. And we didn't just go after you. We went after each other constantly. It was I pulled a gun, tried to shoot you for sitting in my car seat.
You did not.
You don't remember me pointing the gun through the window at
I
you?
have the picture. You weren't trying to kill me. You wouldn't have let me take a picture if you were actually trying to shoot me.
Frank also told Deleel during the first week they're going to kill you off before the end of the season.
He did tell me that.
And Eric turned to me and says, do you think that's true? I'm thinking, how are they going to explain unless they really kill you that you're not a... No, don't worry about it. And you actually worried a little about it because...
Well, I might have worried about it, but my response to Frank right out of the gate was, you're going first. You're a hell of a lot older than I am.
So, and the people are talking, and we'll get to some of the stuff they're talking about. But remember the time you passed out up above the waterfall?
Almost. Didn't actually.
You went to your knees, and your eyes were rolling up, and you were talking with your tongue stuck to the top of your mouth.
Well, it was about 104 degrees that day.
Still arguing to this day.
And they, they picked that day to make us do the most strenuous hike and go into the craziest area. So, obviously they just did that. Like, at least I wasn't one of the cameramen hiking a 50-pound camera up the cliff. But
it was so fun. We're walking away once we got to the top. We probably each of us went through at least 2 gallons of water trying to get up there because we were literally in the sun on the rock face the whole time up. There was no shade. And we get up, it's 110 degrees, and I'm walking next to Eric, and I turn to him, and he's not making sense. He's saying weird things. He's mumbling. I look at him. His eyes are starting to flutter. And I said, dude, you need to sit. You're about ready to go down. And Eric tells me, no, dude, I'm floating. And then Eric's knees start to go.
I think it's called heat stroke. I'm pretty sure it's called heat stroke.
And I'm like, nope. Hey, guys, we need to sit here for a second. Then the dumb thing was, after that happened, and I told them, I said, look, these guys aren't used to this sun and working in it all day because it was lunchtime, and they brought the caterer up to the road around the corner so you guys could walk out to it. So I'm like, hey, they can go eat with the crew, but let's give him a few minutes. Well, I get there, and then there's Woody without a hat sitting in a chair. Remember this? Sitting in the bright sun, sitting out there. And they wonder why he was on saline solution half the time. He was like sunbathing in it. Yeah, and which did not do him any favors. But yeah, we had a lot of fun on that stuff. Some of the best stuff never made the camera or never made the show, like when the horses were breaking loose, when we were walking in. There's hours of those horses breaking loose and our packs and all our gear getting thrown off, and they didn't use any of that stuff, which was
well, if we had access to the tape, I'm sure we could probably put together a better show. Not a better show, but maybe a more entertaining one than we did, just with the outtakes alone.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for anyone who actually watched our show, knowing what we went through and knowing us, that would actually understand it. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
And we got better as we did it because obviously the big thing is we're starting to understand what they're trying to do to us, how they're trying to do it to us, and we learned to kind of, because they're big. The dumbest thing they ever did was letting us get back in my truck or us going off by ourselves, because then we're able to compare notes and talk it over and start sorting stuff out and direct traffic. Say nobody does this except for Magnuson. Magnuson was always that one guy. He was like volunteer Vicky or something. He'd put his hand up. Who wants to do this? Oh, I will. But the rest of us would say no. Remember the Hamburglar and the Jesuits?
Yeah. I didn't want anything to do with that. Now, listen, if you guys told me to crawl under a rock and then, I did that under the Hearthstone and all that stuff. I was all for that, or climb some stupid ladder, you name it. But as far as going off on wacky crackpot theories, I was not all about that, because I will do some stupid stuff, but I'm not going to ruin my integrity for the rest of my life.
We're sitting there. We're supposed to have a discussion about the Jesuits, and one is Magnuson and Frank cannot say the word Jesuit.
Yeah,
they put an H in it. They say Jesuits.
So they're out.
Jesuits. And they keep saying it. And of course, me and Deleel share one thing in common. We get the giggles. And we can't help but crack it up. We're trying to point out they're saying Jesuits. It's Jesuits. And getting Frank to pronounce something is like taking a dead horse to water. It just doesn't happen. So we get through that. And then we're supposed to be talking, and I don't know how he segued into it, but they're talking about the Jesuits. And Frank starts talking, the way we need to get the treasure is be like a hamburglar. And I went into, oh, what the F? What? And then me and you just fell apart because he's obviously referencing McDonald's hamburglar for some reason. We don't even know why he's saying it. And then, because we're not paying attention what these two are talking about. And then he tries to explain, guy, sneaks into the house to rob the house and all. A hamburger. And we're like, no, it's a cat burglar. Then he still couldn't get it right. And then I don't know if you remember, it got to the point I could not stay straight. So I had to go walk off, and they had to put me 20 feet away so I could just stand over there off to the side and watch you guys do the rest of the scene. Because I'm in the middle. That was not the first time. I'm in the middle of a scene, and then I just disappear because I could not handle it with those guys sometimes. They couldn't talk. They couldn't keep it straight. They couldn't pronounce words.
Yeah, it got frustrating a couple times when you're just trying to knock stuff out and make a good show. And part of that is doing your job correctly.
Yeah.
So, everybody did it.
We probably signed, some sort of, special paper that says we can't talk about this stuff. But I say, who cares anymore?
Yeah, I don't care either.
They didn't even. We'll get to that later. They didn't even want to pay us in the end.
That'd be the first time history ever contacted me after the show. So if anything, I welcome their phone call.
Yeah, and I don't know if always put it on history, and less even on A&E, and more on Go-Go at time, the production company. But there was plenty of stuff that happened that made no sense to any of us. We were not treated very well. The best meal we ever really got, in my opinion, was the first breakfast, because they had Sonny's trail crew out there, and they fed us a breakfast of pancakes and eggs, and they had orange juice and coffee, and it was really good. And then the vegans and vegetarians in the production team had them fired for serving the wrong food. And then after that, it was like, oh, we're going to bring out Mexican Chinese food today. It's 110 degrees. These guys have diarrhea, literally. Remember that? Man, everybody has diarrhea in the entire crew, half the cast, and they bring out Mexican Chinese food for us to eat. And I'm like, man, what are you guys thinking of? These guys, we have Magnuson with freaking, what is it, Gold Bond? He's going through like 4 pounds of that stuff a day because he can't even walk because he's so chapped. Frank won't even eat no more because it's just running through him. And that's what happens, though, in the desert. You're drinking all this water, and everything's flushing through you. So that's what's happening to you naturally till you learn not to eat much during the day. And, don't act like it didn't happen to you, too, because it wasn't the food. They weren't giving us the right food to do that. For 6 weeks in the summer, in the heat of the summer, it wasn't the right food choices. We didn't have a dietitian with us. They just fed us whatever they thought was good at the time, which necessarily wasn't very good sometimes.
Well, it wasn't for us. You have to understand there's 40 people out there, so it's for everyone. But I'll have to disagree with you because that wasn't my best meal. My best meal was like the first 2 or 3 days there. Remember the restaurant at the resort, right?
Yeah.
So I remember, I don't think you were there. I think you went home that night. It was me, Frank, Woody, and maybe Magnuson. This is a good story. And we're sitting at the restaurant. And I had remembered specifically someone telling me you can get anything off the menu within reason. And Frank goes, what do you mean? We're stars. Get whatever the hell you want. So Frank orders the Australian lobster surf and turf with like a filet mignon on the side. I'm sitting next to him. The waiter says, what would you like? I'm like, I'll have what he's having. Well, 2 days later, they got the bill and came to Frank and said, you cannot be eating lobster tail every night of the week.
Well, no. See, what happened was I'm in my room. You remember my room where I had my tuna fish packets and my Dr. Pepper. You remember that because, you know, there was those days when you didn't have no money and nothing to eat. You knew where Uncle Wayne was those nights. And so I come back and I find out you guys have been eating steak and lobster. And I'm like, but we were supposed to only get food if you guys served us food on breakfast or lunch. We're supposed to, at a certain point in time, union rules, we have to go find or have our own dinners. So I'm not eating good. And then they had to work out a deal with me because I told them, you either charge those guys for it, but then also remember there was the bad credit card charge on Frank's credit card, which already pissed him off. Or you guys got to reimburse me because I'm sitting in my room eating tuna fish on bread and they're having steak. And I'm the one that's supposed to be the lead in the show. What the hell's the deal on this? So, yeah, they had to make it up to me. And then they put a stop to it because of that.
They did pay for that one meal, though.
Yeah, but it was like, what the hell's going on, man?
Uncle Frank told me it was okay.
Well, you okay, at this point in life, after 6 weeks of the mountains, 2 weeks of pickups, and everything you know about him, you know now when Frank says it's okay, come ask me afterwards.
Probably not okay. By the time, I mean, I'd known him for 2 days. He goes, what do you mean? You're going to be a star, kid.
Yeah. Eric Deleel. He believed everything was real.
Yeah.
But no, we were having a good time initially, and then we kind of started burning out, and then we started resenting the production team more. We liked the cameramen, audio guys, those guys we loved. Anybody that had a pad of paper, a pencil, and was asking us questions, we didn't care for as much as time went on, because they just literally were just kind of like poking and prodding at us and doing all that. So we're getting down through it, and we have to come to this because everybody's going to ask about it. We don't talk about it. Is that day towards the end, and we'll get back into the show and some stuff that happened afterwards. But we decided to walk up the canyon, what's known as Crucifix Canyon, not because of the cross at the beginning. There's a crucifix up in the canyon you guys never saw. And we go up, and you remember I was trying to pull Magnuson up the frickin' that crack, and let's just basically call it as it is. His fat ass basically let me do all the pulling and twisted my knee around, and I got my knee stuck, and it tweaked my knee really bad. And so I'm hobbling, and then it started to rain, and you'll remember I decided let's go up this way and around, and they told me no, and I was pretty pissed off at that point, which I will admit. And you were there. I would get pissed off. And I came back down, slipped, fell on my head, and smacked my hand. And then they had the EMT guy come over to check me and said, well, we need to call the chute for today. We'll come back tomorrow. And you remember that moment where I went, fuck it. And we went, me and you and Magnuson went right up the hill. We left everyone down at the bottom. Glenn came with us, our director of photography, filming us. Otherwise, they would have had no shots of us going up that hill, because I just said, come on, guys, let's go. Because I knew if we went up, they'd have to follow.
Well, that's what's funny about that, too, is everybody was like, oh, where's the cave? Where's the cross? And it's like, you know, it wasn't like it was easy to get to. You know, I mean, you hurt yourself. Granted, it was partly because of Magnuson, but anybody could break an ankle, twist a knee. And if you'll remember, it was pouring rain. And yeah. I have all these funny stories, but I don't know if you remember this. So as we were talking about continuity earlier, and what we wore for the show, I mean, I wore basically the same shirt for the whole show, but I had 2 or 3 of them, right? We had somebody, I mean, we're just airing it all out, right? Airing out our laundry. we had somebody who would do our laundry because we're
Yep.
living in a reality TV environment. We don't have access to these things. So we would give a bag of laundry to this, whoever it was. Still don't know who it was, every week.
Yeah, we had a
And
little bag. We had a little bag. You put your dirty clothes in it, and then it magically shows back up with clean clothes.
It magically shows back up. And I don't know if you remember this, but it started to rain when we were climbing up the canyon when you twisted your knee,
pouring.
and the soap suds started pouring out of everyone's clothes because whoever did our laundry used about a half bottle of Tide for every load. So we're all covered in soap suds and smell like a bottle of Tide.
Yeah, we did. That was a weird smell to go with the guano. Well, you remember when we got about halfway in, and they gave us, remember, I had a better poncho, but they gave you guys those silly cheap ponchos because we were taking a break. Because when you film, we do have to stop filming because it's a union crew, and they have to deal with the crew. So we were fortunate that they brought in catering, which was sandwiches and chips. And the funny thing was, it was so wet, and it was August, or no, it was September, but it got really cold. We're under these ponchos, pouring rain. Our sandwiches literally just fell apart. We could not even eat. It was just like mush.
They're wrung it out.
They had guys with cardboard boxes full of fucking paper sacks.
Basically our Sherpas. They were our Sherpas.
Yeah, by the time they got there, everything was pretty much ruined except for the chips. And so we're sitting there shivering, and the wind's coming howling through there, and it's pouring rain on us. And we're sitting there in the most miserable condition, and we're bouldering and stuff. But we're sitting there trying. There's no dry spot anywhere to sit.
I found an overhang.
There just wasn't nothing, man. Remember, it was like some of those potholes when we were bouldering had like 3 feet of water in them. Yeah. It was like it was just miserable. But I'll never forget that, trying to eat the sandwich, because I was like, man, I got to eat a sandwich or something, and I'm eating it. It's just falling apart in my hand. It was just like oatmeal. It was like miserable. And then, of course, once we hit the slope up to the cave, you have the spores of bat guano on you. You don't want to touch or put anything near your freaking mouth. I mean, it was disgusting. I stayed away from you guys a little bit, and we will get to that. We got up there, and you'll remember I went off to the side and stood on a big rock because it had washed most of the guano off, and I stood there. And then Christian, Horner, and Russell came up to me and said, "Aren't you going to get over there with the boys?" And I said, "No." And I said, "I'm standing on this freaking rock right here." Because you guys are out there in 2 foot of guano. You're sinking into it like it's like attic insulation. And the next thing, they're telling you, you got to climb up. And one of the funniest moments, and I'm sorry, Eric, I have pictures of it. I wish I would have filmed at the time, is you're trying to go up the ladder. The crap is falling down into your mouth. You're gagging, knocking shit down into Magnuson's mouth. You come down off the ladder, and I got the picture of you and Magnuson like hands and knees in the guano throwing up, which is actually propelling guano back in your face. So it was just you guys, and then you started the dry heaves. And I got that picture. I posted it on Facebook before with Christian Rab himself, of his eyes really big, because I looked at him and I had to take a picture because he just could not believe. You guys were just retching, man. That had to be the worst thing that happened. The bat guano going down your throats. Because you guys didn't even give a crap. You didn't apologize, give a crap. You just guys started hurling.
Now, I remember the picture you're talking about.
Yes.
I may have done some dry heaving, but I never actually, vomited or whatnot. But I got one of the best compliments from Rab himself of Jackass fame after the fact. Super nice guy. He's clean and sober, obviously. And, he's a cameraman now. And he's done really well for himself after Jackass. But I talked to him after the fact, and he goes, "Now you know why I'm behind the camera. I already did all the crap you're going through."
Yeah, when a man can compliment you, the man who compliments you hung from his underwear from a tree branch. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but
I'll take it.
Certainly something. Yeah, and you're the one that pointed that out, because we worked with these guys, and Jesse Hayes had been in some couple different shows. I didn't know it. We worked with Noah Mathers, who was Jerry Mathers, a Leave It to Beaver's son. And then we had Christian Rab himself from Jackass. I had no clue who these guys were. We worked with them for weeks before you guys explained it, because I just knew he was Chris. You know, it was Chris, and it was Noah, and I didn't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Noah pointed it out by saying, "You want my dad's autograph?" And then he signed a piece of paper, and I didn't even look at it. And I said, "Oh, thanks." And he goes, "Well, I do my dad's autograph better than he does." And then I looked at it, and then it sunk in. I said, "Jerry Mathers, the Beeve." And then I was like, "Oh, crap," you know. But that was fun. I kept that, so I actually have a forged version of Jerry Mathers' autograph.
I mean, you know, he should have just had Noah sign it because he was, you know, good enough dude. But
Noah's good.
I think the point is, once that these guys are in the industry, whether it's through family or however, they tend to stay. Like Rab, you know, he was on screen talent for a while, and then he just transitioned to the camera. And you know, if I could go back in time, you know, 25 years, instead of getting a journalism degree, I probably would have gone into camera work or something to do with the entertainment industry, just because I mean, the guys we worked with still, Patrick Dupree and all those guys, like he's out there filming Naked and Afraid in
Patrick's
Africa.
always naked and afraid.
You get to travel, you get to rub elbows, you get to have crazy experiences on somebody else's dime, similar to what we did. But, you know, for us, it was kind of not one and done, but you know what I mean.
We messed Patrick up so bad, he decided Naked and Afraid was a good idea.
If the paychecks, you know, if they keep coming, I don't blame him. Because ours stopped.
So now we'll get into the sticky stuff, because this is stuff people always want to say. And I defer stuff because I point out you guys don't understand. We go to Black Cross Butte. We, for some reason, decide to go around the back way. Me, you, and Magnuson go in. We get to the ladder. They want to send you up the ladder with a flashlight, a GoPro, and a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
There is no cameraman. There is no audio. In fact, some of the audio we had to redo because the walkie-talkie stuff was bad. We redid in a parking lot later, if you remember, some of it, because there was nothing there. Now, I remember kind of what went on, but people forget what they saw on TV, for most all of us, was all that we got to see. You were up there for a little bit, and there was dead bats, and it was nasty and all, and I'm sure it's a memory you'd like to shake. But also, additionally, there's also the black hand thing, where I didn't even realize there's supposed to be 2 sets of black hands in that one cave. I thought there was just one. Or just one hand. And I'm like, you guys saw the show. Eric had to walk all the way down the canyon, go to the other side, walk all the way down, because we said, go look over there. And then he saw it. He walkie-talkies to us, then we go, come back. And that took you about an hour to come back. You had to walk all the way down the canyon, cross back over, and come back to us where we stayed the night. But yeah, and that was kind of like, I thought it was actually funny because we just sat there. I just sat there smoking cigarettes, watching you take forever to walk over there. And it was like 10, 15 minutes. And it's like, okay, Deleel, come back. It's like, so people don't understand is, don't ask me questions about some things because I wasn't there. We never went over there, never looked at it. You took pictures, but I think the only pictures we ever saw was what was in the show. Because they give you a GoPro and send you on your way, and that's problematic. Because the only time we saw anything of the Bat Cave different than what you see on TV is when we looked on the laptop in my truck, which we had to film later because we were so full of guano. We were so nasty. Remember I made you guys take off your clothes? Throw them in the back of my truck, and we drove home in our underwear because we were so freaking nasty, man. We were nasty, dude. It was miserable coming out of there. So I didn't want that stuff all on my leather seats and in my truck, so we had to strip down and then drive back barefoot in our underwear back into town. And but we didn't do anything, so then they said, oh, crap, we need to do this because it was getting late. And there was also the snafu of Magnuson's metal detectors. Remember that? So we had all that drama. So people aren't even really jumping into it much. But, yeah, you're the only guy that saw this stuff. And then they act like, well, did you figure out who's behind the black hands? Well, I know it wasn't you. It could have been production could have done it. It could have been, who knows. The only one I really saw was the one that was in camp, and that one pissed me off because it seems stupid. I don't know about you. We walk up and then they go check that out. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's to me is like you have your Home Alone moment, if you know what I mean. You're like, yeah, I agree. And granted, we're telling a story, and the Black Legion and the Hands are part of the story in that area, and there are people who still believe in that. However, I will say back to when you're saying, you know, I saw that stuff, you didn't, I did, who did it, I don't know. What I got out of that is when I watched the show, it was some of the first, I don't know if you remember this, but 8 years ago when we did the show, we were doing some of the first drone photography of any reality TV show. Now it's everywhere. But I just remember watching myself hike up that canyon to where I found the black handprints, and it was some of the most beautiful drone photography I'd ever seen.
Oh, no.
For me, that was good enough. Handprints or not, I got to walk on the side of a cliff, find black handprints, and get some of the most beautiful photography ever taken of me on a TV show. I was okay with that.
Well, and that was Michael Wonderly. And that was funny, too, because we were 3 weeks into the show, and then they found out Wonderly had a drone.
Well,
they didn't even know he brought the drone.
Was doing it by the end.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of drone footage at the end, but initially we didn't have any drones because they didn't know the drone was sitting in the truck.
Well, think of how cool it would have been to have drone footage of the Quarter Circle U, or our first hike, one of the first days we filmed, which was at the Quarter Circle U when we hiked out with the horses. How cool would any of that been? And then, 3 weeks, a month in, somebody goes, I have a drone in my truck. Maybe we should use it.
Yeah, it was, I'm trying to remember how it came about, because we had Mike Wonderly and Ian McLaughlin, cameramen. Glenn Evans was our director of photography and was the photographer. And then Patrick Dupree and Christian Rabb were the fourth and fifth cameramen. There was that many cameramen. And so you could have always done drone stuff. But they talked about, with me driving up and down roads, it would be good to have some drone shots of Wayne driving down this road. And Mike Wonderly just went, oh, there's a drone in the van. I brought it. And then they went, bing! And then from then on, we had drone shots. So that shows you how great the communication was on the production team.
But if you remember, one of the first promos and advertisements that ever came out for the show, it was your truck driving down that road in that super beautiful scene where the sky's all purple and the stars are out or whatever. And in one of those shots, you and I spent about 4 hours driving up and down the road while they just filmed us in the truck. And
go there, come back. Go there, come back. Go there.
I didn't really care because you and I would just drive around, listen to cool music and Prince and whatever, and it was a good time. So I was cool with it.
and they would rotate who rode with me, because some days I got Frank, some days I got you. I never got Magnuson or Woody. It was either you or Frank, or I was by myself. And the reason they quit doing me by myself was I got bored. Because I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, go down here. Go. And people don't understand what that's like when you're just doing a quarter to half mile loop over and over for 2-3 hours. It just becomes, and they don't want you to smoke on screen, and they don't want you to do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And you're just, after a while, you're like, my God, can I go anywhere else right now? Because I wanted to, when Mitch Keldorf took us over over Bluff Springs Mountain, and we came down low over it before we spun around the Needle when I was up there with Mags. I almost wanted him to get low enough to jump out of the helicopter and walk back to the Quarter Circle U just to get away from everybody. Because you guys got days off. I never got a day off till towards the end when we went shooting. Remember when we went gold panning and shooting? I never had a day off. It was literally, for me, 14, 16 hours a day, sun up to sun down, and I was always having to do an interview or do something, and I was getting so burned at that point of like, man, I'm tired of this. Those guys are back at like a resort chilling. And Frank's just riding with me to give me someone to ride with in my truck. So it's like, literally, I'm so bored to tears. So when I had the opportunity, I wanted to ask Mitch, can you get low enough I can jump out? Because I would have loved to see that when they came back with the helicopter and I was missing. You weren't there for that day, were you? Did you? You and Woody didn't go for that day. No, you guys were back at the resort. Like I said, you guys
because you know how Magnuson was very good at like saying, "Oh, I'll do that, please, sir. I'll have another."
Well, that was another thing, and also Magnuson jumped on those opportunities because Frank would say, "I won't do that."
Well, no, he got the opportunity in the helicopter. That's my probably one regret is that I did throw my name in the hat, but I didn't. Regardless, it was a cool scene, and I had enough of my own.
We had a blast. That was probably one of the funnest times I had on the show. Really, just flat out, just fun.
Yeah.
Because Mitch got in the air, and then everything they told him to do, he just turned to me and said, "What do you want to do?" And we took off, and Glenn never said a word, and we did whatever we wanted, and they were pissed off because we blew like 10 grand of me just having him fly all over the mountains wherever I wanted him to. They didn't tell me where we were supposed to go. We were supposed to be looking for Heartstones. We're supposed to be at Horse Mesa. And I just said, no, go to the Quarter Circle U. Let's buzz the ranch. Let's do donuts around frickin' Weaver's Needle. We were having a blast. I thought they just wanted aerial footage with us in the helicopter. I didn't know we were supposed to do something. Then I get back, and the next day, they're all ticked off because they're like, there's no audio of you guys talking. And we're like, well, the air conditioning was broke in the helicopter, so we had to fly with the doors off. So it's like, so audio would have been useless. And then on top of it, they're like mad at me and Glenn. Why didn't you guys follow the, what we wanted you to do, the plan? And I'm like, I have no idea what the plan was. Well, it's what we're talking about in the show. Well, shit, you put a grown-ass man in a helicopter with a pilot that's like Mitch, who's like, what do you want to do? Well, shit, we're going where I want. And that's what we did. We had a blast. They should have given me a Ford pickup. See, that was one of my brilliant things I did. I had a Ford
King Ranch.
King Ranch pickup, which Eric will tell you was super nice. Eric ruined it because he thought the rubber mat where I put my cigarette butts was an ashtray. He put a cigarette out.
No, I did.
But anyways, I had the air-cooled, heat-cooled seats. It was a super nice truck. And I drove that, and I brought a Winchester rifle because I figured if you're going to get any product endorsement, go big. Go for something big. And, of course, then Ford never even gave me an oil change. I'm still a Ford guy. I'm on my third Ford since then, but
which actually brings you to another good point. The amount of product placement we did for nothing really still to this day blows my mind. I mean, you're saying you got a Carhartt jacket. Let me show you. This is probably one of the only things I still have from the show.
You asshole.
CRKT.
You stole that. Right, you stole it.
Did not. Everybody should have got one, and I got this one.
I had one stuck in my pack, and they found it, and they took it out away from me. You asshole. I tried to steal one and didn't get it because I wanted one.
You're never getting it. Still sharp, as Frank would say, sharp enough to cut bone.
Yeah, because that was a weird thing is we had cool stuff. The Garmin's. I erased my Garmin because they took it back. They took everything back.
Yes, binoculars, Yeti coolers.
They took everything back but my jacket. And it was my jacket I still have. But they gave me the boots back after a while.
Just in case Wayne, I still got this just in case I ever need it.
See this? See this?
What is that?
Frank gave that to Trevor. This is an actual authentic. What year is it? 1800s or 1700s tomahawk Frank found in Pennsylvania. This was actually used in real life. So I got screwed out of you for that one. Well, Frank gave this to Trevor, not even me. So yeah, we got this, the scalper.
Thank you, Frank.
Good on you, Trevor. Keep that one.
So yeah, it was funny. We went out with Frank and he talks about it in a video, and we're sitting there, and then we're driving home, and I look in the back seat and I go, holy shit, Frank left the tomahawk back there. Because I'm thinking if you have a 200-some-odd-year-old tomahawk you found out treasure hunting, you don't want to lose it. So I'm like, I got to call Frank and let him know it's in the truck. We'll get it back to him. And Trevor goes, oh, never mind. He gave it to me. And I'm like, what the So, but, yeah, I wanted, see, they had 3 of those. And they were playing around with them, and I thought, I want one of those. And because it was one of the few things I wanted. And they packed them up. They took my boots. They couldn't take my pants or my shirts because I owned those. Those were my own. And the hat was mine. But
Yeah.
they took almost all the rest of the gear they gave me. I got that multi-tool. Remember the multi-tool that was in your room? And then
I
the
got
little
one.
pocket knife.
Yeah.
I got the
I
pocket
had
knife.
one.
All the
Lost.
rest of my gear they took. The
Yeah.
Garmins, the binoculars, everything else, my tomahawk, they took all the rest of the gear from me. And that really sucked because then we found out later what it was supposed to be is either we got paid for product placement, showing those things in the thing,
Or we
or
would get free stuff.
we got to keep them.
And so yeah, we'd be out there. I don't know if you remember this. We were across from the Heartstone, and I don't have the binoculars because they didn't give them to me. But literally, there's a scene where it's like me and Frank and probably you, and we're looking back at the landscape, and it's like, oh, let me pull out my Garmin binoculars and check this out. And it's like, oh wow, there's this piece of rope here that needs to be cut. Let me pull out my CRKT hatchet. But we never got crap from it.
But the idea is you're supposed to get paid for it. And then the companies, Frank found out later from a couple of the companies, was we were supposed to get the gear. So the gear's supposed to go to us. You remember they let you have that FLIR and hold it, and then they got it out of your hands and took it away. They made sure we basically couldn't hold anything. Yeah. They were always taking stuff away. So all the optics, all that stuff that we had that was actually the Garmin was cool because it took pictures, it would make phone calls, it was like a two-way radio, it kept GPS, it mapped, it had all this great stuff, note-taking, it was like having a little tiny laptop. And I had all this information in it, and then we were getting ready to leave, and they wanted it back, so then I sat down, and I took it and erased everything out of it and made them mad, but I said, you guys aren't getting that. So they tried to grab everything they could off of us. So I left there. I got pissed off, threw off my boots, took off a bunch of stuff, threw it on the ground, and someone said something, aren't you it's wrap-up night, aren't you coming back in for cake? And I said, fuck you. I said, I'm going home. You guys just took the boots off my fucking feet. Which is a true thing. I walked down the steps, and Frank said, you look pissed off. I said, absolutely. And then the dumb thing was, they wanted to bring us back a month later, and remember, I think it was David, one of the executive producers. He looks down, and I'm wearing these brown work boots. And he goes, why are you wearing those? Where's your boots? I said, you guys took them. He calls up at the office. They're in Burbank, sitting in a closet. So he has to have them put on a plane and sent out. So if you watch carefully, you'll see my work boots just once, briefly, or twice. But they had to basically get a plane and then bring my work boots out.
So the real question is there a storage locker in LA with Legend of the Superstition Mountains gear in it? Or is some poor production assistant who never made it?
I heard Christian and Russell in them, and I could be wrong, and hey, if I piss Russell off, who cares? But it won't be the first time. But I heard they took the gear. Frank said something that they split a lot of it up, and he found out they took most of the stuff. So they didn't even mention it to us, and then they just ended up taking it, and so there it is. So we have one for them. If we ever cross paths again, okay. Yeah, see, doing a second season might have been bad for them, because I already had things in the back of my head. I already had ideas, because, that would have been good. Okay, so now we get to the question. And there's some people leaving because it's real late and stuff. But one question from Kim Johnson. Kim's a good dude. He comes out to the Rendezvous. He's a member of the Dons, Arizona. But would you guys do it all over again? And that's a tough one, isn't it? Because we talk about that at times, because there is a lot of negative with the positive. Getting to know each other, becoming friends. Some of the stuff we did, it's all a good time. There's a lot of negative in it, too, because we got treated like dirt for the most part.
I mean, season 2 would have been way better than season 1, and we already knew that going in. And we already had most of the plot points written, and the show would have been awesome and the things we would have found. But, there'd have to be a lot more in it for me, because I set myself back probably 5 years. And, just to lay it all out there, I probably made less than $10,000 doing the show. And that 10 grand I made, I probably lost 100,000 or more. So, I mean, it was the experience of a lifetime for me, and I would try and make it work, but it would have to work for me.
People have to remember, when we wrapped up filming, Woody and Frank are retired. Now, Woody's health had deteriorated really bad, and his wife and his mother, who was still alive at the time, were very ill. But Frank and I just basically go home. We're home. You and Magnuson, suddenly, you have no job. And Magnuson had no job and no wife suddenly.
Yeah.
You guys suddenly, next thing I know is I'm getting a phone call like the show had ended and they owed us, I believe, 2 or 3 paychecks. And you and Magnuson are calling me saying, hey, can you ask them? They're not even returning my calls. When are we getting paid? Because they didn't pay us before the show came out. After the show came out, they still refused to pay you guys. And you two were the minimal guys. You guys, I think, were getting around $9,000 for the whole season. And I'm thinking, it ain't much money. In fact, let's push this out there, because this was really funny. Not for you. The per diem, they put you guys in the resort. Now later, when Magnus's wife came out, he was like a con man. He got a car, a rental car. But they're stuck at the resort. They got no place to go. And they give us per diem for meals and stuff, so you can have some spending money. So we decide we're not going to film for the weekend. They give Eric Deleel, who's literally living in the hotel, a check. He has no way to go anywhere, dude. This is before all the lift and all this crap. Eric Deleel's sitting there with a check, and this is where the story comes in. That he comes by knocking at my door. Hey, dude, you got something to eat? And I always had potato chips, tuna fish sandwiches, and Dr. Pepper, and Deleel would come out and hang out. And then we went to Subway one night. We went out. Took you out, got checked. But, yeah, it was literally, they just abandon you when they're not filming. And don't think of the fact that, what are you supposed to do? You're living here for 6 weeks.
There was no picture deposit. You can like take a picture of the check, put it in your bank account. There's no convenience store within like 8 miles. I'm at a resort. The restaurant closes. Like there's nothing. So
yeah, it was rough. But yeah, I remember you and Magnuson. So I had to call. I was calling Bill, and then Bill put me on. I can't remember. Tina Clapp. I remember she had a middle name. She had one of those hyphenated names. I can't remember what it was. But anyways, I was calling them trying to get you guys paid because, and I finally did because I called Russell and Russell said, just tell them you're going to have an attorney send them a letter. They need to pay you. Because it was like, well, didn't it get in like June, July? The show finishes in April. It's June, July. They still haven't paid you guys.
So the show is only 6 episodes, and every episode that we were featured on, we were owed a certain amount. It didn't matter if we were on there for 30 seconds or the whole episode. Yeah. So every episode would come out and I'd be like, okay, well, I've been paid for 3 episodes, but episode 4 was 2 weeks ago. Okay, we're on episode 5 now and I haven't been paid. Okay. And the next thing you know, the series ends and they owe me like, $6,000 or something.
And see,
I can't pay my rent.
Yeah, I actually had vacation time and then I was back at work and I'm doing all right. And I'm just figuring, okay, the paychecks will come. So I'm not sweating it. But I also still have a job. Frank and Woody are retired and they made a deal with them also leasing their mining claims and stuff. So they got cash out of that. So we didn't have a clue that you guys weren't getting checks and how they were dealing with you because you guys didn't get, I don't know if they ever contacted you after the show finished to call you, see how you're doing. History Channel, they would call me, say, hey, how's everything going? This is the plan. This is what we're doing. We're getting ready to present season 2. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So they'd communicate, and I'd try to communicate to you guys what was going on. But people don't understand is, man, they'll drop you so fast and treat you like you're an afterthought. And it does seem kind of cruel, but it is. I mean, it's like if you guys hadn't complained to me, I would have had no idea. And Magnuson actually FaceTimed me from his house. She took all the furniture. He's like in this empty house with his dog. His wife left. He has no job. He's like, dude, I need a check. And you were almost in the same place. It's like, dude, where's my money?
But you know what the kicker of it all is that you just got this amazing opportunity to work on the History Channel and this amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And 75% of the people who know you or you've ever run across think you are now wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, 8 years later, I'm in a hell of a lot better spot than I was because after the show, I quit my job. My dog had just died. So, you know how we always call this, the curse, right? There's always this thing about the curse. Magnuson lost his house, his wife, all this stuff. Woody had health problems, you name it. The list goes on and on. So my dog had just died. And I was like, screw it. I'm over working 9 to 5. And I went gold mining for like 6 months thinking, I'm going to get this second season of this TV show. The paychecks are going to be way better. They've already basically promised us this. And long story short, that never came to fruition. And I let's just say it's very hard to make it as a gold miner. If you want to live on more than $80 a day,
well,
unless you find,
people need to understand too, is that they really build you up and lead you along. They were like, oh, no, don't worry. And they would tell me, hey, it could be any week now. We'll get the green light. We're setting up production. Here's this. Because we worked on season 2 and a lot of the stuff, me and Bill Costanzo, and then Frank had his input. We were working on that stuff before we even finished. The first season aired. Because once we got back, I was back out in the mountains scouting for them and taking pictures and stuff. So all that stuff's moving forward. So I believed in it too, but suddenly you realize it's November, it's December, and they're saying, yeah, well, you're not on the schedule yet, but you're just sitting. And then I would call them like, hey, I'm a fan. My name's John Doe. I'm wondering when you're going to bring back Legends of Superstition Mountains. Well, the guys are at home. They're just setting up for production.
They're resting and relaxing.
And they gave me this cock and bull story. So finally I went to Frank and I said, Frank, let's figure out something else to do for a while because I don't know what's going on. But yeah. They have this alternative character universe they're placing us in. And it really is a shame. Now, they're great people. I mean, a lot of the guys that we worked with on the crew, and Bill Costanzo and I talk occasionally still. Bill's a good guy. He's no longer with Go Go Lucky. Bill's a really good guy. And that show was his baby. He wanted that show to run. And, it was really funny because he went into History Channel and they were pitching a show for someone else, and he pitched the show, and they actually said to him in the room in New York, why can't you pitch us a show like that Legend of the Superstition Mountain show? And I said, what'd you say, Bill? And he said, I was too stunned to say anything. Because I'm thinking...
Why do you say, well, you can pick it up if you want to?
You guys own it. What the hell? So he said that made no sense to him, is you had this high-rating show. You guys just decided to go off and chase freaking Adolf Hitler stories and other crap, and you just dropped all that stuff except for Oak Island. They literally dropped everybody but Oak Island, and that was the shame on it, is like, because someone's saying here, was the show officially, and we were never canceled, it was just shelved. We had the green light for season 2. They came in, they did a presentation. History Channel was going through a reorganization. They got rid of a bunch of people. They were reorganizing, and a couple key people that were big pushers of our show in A&E had left. And that kind of like Russell, our director, let me know that it's not good for us because you need those people in the room to push your show and make deals to get other people's shows in because they take your show. And he said we didn't have those people in the room, and some of the other guys in the room didn't care for the show, which is the ultimate problem. If the guy's wife, the guy who's making the decision in the room on what TV shows air, his wife hates the show, you have a better chance of being canceled than if the show does badly. Because if his wife loves the show, he's keeping it. So he's going to answer to his wife.
So you're just saying we know who wears the pants.
In those situations, I'm sure that was definitely the case.
I've got a good idea for a show, Wayne. Adolf Hitler, was he abducted by aliens?
He's in the Superstitions.
Or was Frank abducted by aliens?
Frank was struck by lightning.
Now that explains it.
It explains a lot.
So listen, to bring it full circle, I don't regret anything, and we all had a great time. But could it have gone a little better? Yeah. But none of that was our fault.
We would have been on a better keel the second time around because we knew each other. We knew how things operated better. We were getting more savvy. I mean, you remember they gave us a sheet of paper that said, for social media purposes, this is how you promote the show. Now, I had like 12 people as Facebook friends on Facebook. I didn't even know what this other crap was. I'm asking you questions. Dude, what's Instagram? Deleel actually knew what was going on to some degrees with social media. Frank Woody did not have it. Magnuson did YouTube with the Dirt Digging Brothers or whatever they were.
Dirt Diggler
and whatever they were. But anyways, they gave us the sheet, and then they turn around and tell us, don't talk about the show, though. How do you promote the freaking TV show without talking about the show?
now, 8 years later, everybody who gets a TV show, it's like, promote the hell out of it. Yeah. Anything you can do, call your grandma,
our Facebook page, the show came out, ran for like first 4 or 5 weeks, and then I went to Frank Campana, and I said, hey, dude, can I get on as an administrator on the Facebook page? And he said, why? I said, you haven't updated it since the show came out.
Oh,
they were doing no social media. They gave me all our social media. They handed it to me because nobody was doing anything with it. And I was like, our show's still pulling close to 2 million people. We're going well. We're doing good over in Europe. We're doing great in Ireland and Australia. Why is nobody... They gave me an interview with the Huffington Post and stuff. But then even the Huffington Post, they had someone from A&E and History on the line in my ear because they wanted to be careful what I would say to the reporters. And I'm like, what am I, a doofus?
What am I going to tell them what happens in episode 6? But yeah, so Go Lucky, everybody knows, was our production company, and we have mixed feelings about them. But if you look at Go Lucky, Luckey, don't know, whatever, it's a old school reference. If you look at their last Instagram post ever, Wayne, it's a picture of me, the professional photographer that came out. It has probably got more
when you're on the tractor.
No, that was a promo. That was cool, but so thank funny. You.
They have me with a rifle. They have Frank pointing a gun. They do everybody. Magnuson with a pick or metal detector. Woody with a pick over his shoulder. They got you on a freaking tractor.
That was my idea, okay? And I said, watch my show so I can buy a new tractor. And that right there is called comedic license. Now, regardless, I'm the Go Lucky. I'm their last photograph on their Instagram. If that isn't some weird prophetic stuff, I don't know what is. That's like, maybe you shouldn't have brought me on after all.
Well, and the Jacksons, the next generation, got all our money. Frank's theory is they took all the money they made off of us, and then they put it in the Jacksons' next generation, and it bottomed out and flipped over and died. And then the production company, shortly after that, went out. And then we had to sit on an 81-year contract, which people got to understand. Eric tried to get on. What show did you try to get on at first? I can't remember the name of it. It was up in Alaska.
Whitewater Gold.
Yeah, he tried to get in Whitewater Gold. I got to do some stuff. And then Carga 7. Was it Carga 7? Yeah, Carga 7 does Blind Frog Ranch. So I decided, because they're up in Utah, and I'm like, well, Terry Carter, a good friend of mine, the treasure hunter, does the channel thing, and then Eric are more up that way, so maybe one of them can do it. And I actually gave Eric the phone number and the information and said, I told them you'll call them and stuff, and Eric forgot to call them when they were casting. Because I decided I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go up to Utah.
I did.
Yes, I gave it to you.
I called them. I interviewed for the show. They hired another Eric. They hired Eric Drummond.
Oh, maybe they didn't like you.
Well,
Are you high yet?
No, I wish. No. You're mixing up two stories. When you did the show in L.A., the show for whatever it was for, the Legend of the for. Whatever.
World's Greatest Mysteries.
Yeah,
Beyond
one of those
Island.
Shows. You said you need to call Eric, the real deal Deleel, and he's an expert in the Lost Dutchman gold mine and all this. I waited for 3 months for that phone call. You gave them my number. 4 months go by, and I find in my hidden message requests on Facebook from a PA saying, we want to fly you to LA so you can be on this show. I contacted them. The show had already been filmed.
Yeah. Well, we got someone commenting, History Channel sounds overscripted and melodramatic. It's not. The show is. You film for 6 weeks. It's 10, 12 hours a day, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. The problem is with all that footage and all that material, the guys that edit it turn it into what it is. Eric can be a first one to tell you when they talk to you and you do an interview, they have you do the same interview 3, 4 times. And they'll say, well, Eric, what would you say about Frank's thoughts on this? Eric, what do you think about Woody's reaction? They look for you to give a commentary that they can use different ways in the program. So sometimes what we're talking about has nothing to do with the continuity, has nothing to do with the shot. It's just loose stuff. And my last days we filmed, they had notebooks of stuff. I literally was doing 200-300 pages of lines that they would just use throughout the show. And if you pay attention, you'll see I'm wearing 2 shirts because literally rapid fire as they would do them, and then I'd pull off a shirt and I'd do it in another shirt. Then I would pull that shirt back on. So there's a blue and a gray shirt because I wore different undershirts, but they had to go back and forth because we had to do all this stuff to catch up. And we didn't know that. We didn't know that they piecemeal this stuff together like that. So when Eric watches the show, it's like me. Sometimes you're confused because you're like, that's not how that happened. It's different than that.
This person's point, which is a good point, you also have to understand that, like Wayne said, when you do the same thing you say the same thing 3 times, but in a different way, you are not going to be chosen to be on television with your response. If you say, what do you think? If they say, what do you think about Frank? And you say, he's just such a nice gentleman. And I don't think he'd ever say that about me. As to where if you say, Frank Augustine is a dick and I hate him, that's when your response goes into the show.
Yep. Well, and you don't have to say it even on camera. Jesse Feldman sat aside with me at one point and told me Josh Feldman was on camera, and he said at one point in Ice Cold Gold, you can tell his mouth is moving, but they recorded him with the mic, but they had him on camera, but his mouth moves differently than the words. So they took something they got off his mic. Because we remember we're mic'd. So I taught all you guys when we went off by ourselves how to unplug and turn off our mic packs. Because literally they hear you all the time. When we're not filming, they can hear us in headsets. So they're recording every bit of audio. Me and Eric and Frank are sitting in my truck just sitting back talking about stuff. They have all that audio. So we learned to get in there and then check with each other and make sure everybody turned off before we sat down and started talking, because it's just you want to talk smack.
And I actually have a really personal funny story about that before you ever told me that, Wayne. So thank you. But we were at the Quarter Circle U filming, and this was back in the days when, I was a little pissed because I probably wasn't on camera as much as I thought I would be eventually. And I went to the one little bathroom in the back, and I didn't quite remember to unplug my mic pack. And I was in the bathroom relieving myself and talking to myself. And about halfway through, I went, oh, crap. I'm still plugged in. And you can guarantee, I don't know what I said, but you can guarantee that somebody has that audio and somebody listened to it somewhere.
Well, definitely Pete or Noah have it.
But I was probably talking about half the people there, like this mother.
Well, and even worse to me is we're at Tom Collenborn's house. And this is during the first couple of days of filming. And I'm out back of his house, and they were filming me talking about some stuff. And Bill Costanzo, who I get along with great now, was coming down and walking around. And I'd already had enough of Bill Costanzo. And you know me, Eric. I say whatever I freaking want.
Yep.
I didn't know everybody had headphones on and could hear everybody. And I went, oh, fucking great. Here comes Bill Costanzo. What a fucking warm, happy day this is going to be. And Bill stopped and stared at me. And then I realized, oh, holy shit, I'm mic'd up, man. He can hear me. Then Pete and Noah came over and said, okay, dude, you can turn this, flip this switch, or turn this and unplug, okay?
And that's when you taught me and everybody else that we were in a truck together having a private conversation about the direction we wanted the TV show to go. Then we would all turn our mics off and nobody'd be able to hear a word about what we said.
Was that beer empty?
It was completely empty.
Someone asked me, is the beer cold? The beard is, well, no, now the Eric's gone. Okay, the beer's empty.
It was completely empty.
It's a Heineken. There you go. So
it was a Heineken, and it was very cold and delicious. Thank you. Next question.
I just get to the important shit here, you know? Just imagine as much fun as we're having, me and Eric are having funny. Just imagine when it's me and Frank, because then it's going to go to the Marx Brothers. This is a little bit of Lewis and Martin. It's going to go full blown Marx Brothers there.
You call it Lewis and Martin, I call it Lewis and Clark. What are you going to do?
Okay, what do you do? What the fuck? Okay, Eric, the history genius. Yes. Okay.
Well, we are explorers. What are you
Eric,
going to do?
I'm pretty smart too. I have a degree in journalism. You know how stupid that stuff sounds when you're out in the mountains and you're trying to make a point in that moment. It's that moment where we're all thinking, who cares? Because I think that was that point where you were getting mad because you said, how come they're allowed guns and I'm not? Because I have a rifle, I have a pistol, Frank has at least 3 guns on him, and you guys are like, why don't we get guns?
I got this. It doesn't matter.
There we go.
You didn't get one.
You know what? I know where you live. I got your address. Okay, there you go. And the police are looking for you for something. So
Probably.
yeah,
That's probably
just grab the tomahawk on your way out, boys. But yeah, it was, again, people have to understand we had a lot of fun. It was a great time. And we all got to be friends for the most part. And we stay in touch. I'm probably the one person that stays in touch with all you guys the most, because I just make sure I always remember to reach out. Plus, I mean, Frank and Woody are much older. I don't know if you've heard from Frank or Woody. Well, you came to the rendezvous the one year. They're just not the kind of guys that call you up or text you unless someone else texts you. And the texts are actually X-rated that we send each other. So we had to stop that because anyone with a small child would throw one of us in jail for the stuff that was going on in the text. I mean, there was some weird love fest going on there or something. Remember those? They literally got horrible. Yeah, that was just, the texts were bad for a long time. And we're trying to keep this as clean as possible.
That's a show for another time, Wayne.
But yeah, if we could ever do the real Legend of the Superstition Mountains, there were literally probably about 20, 30 F-bombs per every 60 seconds with us going on, because it literally was. And then you got to imagine the last day we're filming out at Canyon Lake. We're driving in our underwear with no shoes on, listening to Prince. That was true. Yeah, Eric's like, this is cool music. Yeah, we're listening to, it was the new Prince album that was out at the time, and I had it.
I call that a good day.
Oh, we always listened to different music. It was never the same music. It was always something completely mind-bendingly different. I always kind of had something else just to keep everybody kind of like chill it out. Frank, I know, hated it. You know what music Frank likes, I heard? Disco.
I don't know. So, maybe that explains it.
Next time we're in the mountains, I'm going to have Disco Duck queued up. But I can see it, okay?
I mean, I'm good on that, but all right. Make it happen.
You got to spare, let's see, please, more beer. Being real is the best part. People like Prince. You got a space or a notebook. A spare or a notebook. What the hell does that mean? I think sometimes, there are people smoking something out there.
Well, so, yeah.
It gets later in this thing, and I think they've eaten dinner on the East Coast, and we had McCracken in. She plays the tin whistle or the whistle thing up in Ireland and all. She's pretty cool. We got some cool people. A lot of them just took off. We got Robert Lawton, Blind Bowman. I told you about him. He's talked to you. So we got a lot of these guys in here. You can't see him. You'll see him after a bit. If you look at it with the chat, you'll see him kind of floating by. And it's really hard because when you're doing the chat, I have to really focus if it's me by myself to catch everything because it scrolls so fast. In this, I figure we hit everything as we're talking about it and all that stuff. So sure. You've moved on, you're doing good. So Eric, that $100,000, $1 million question, it's actually probably $1,500 per episode question is, if someone knocked on your door today and said, hey, Eric, we want you to come back, do 8 episodes right now, would you do it?
Yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it.
You ass clown, you, man. He's lying.
What do you
mean?
The
first phone call would be to me to say, wait, can we get more money out of these guys? What the hell?
I didn't say I'd do it for the same amount of money. Are you crazy?
Yeah, well, they're cheap, though. We're talking about, they had a martini bar in their SUV. They don't want to pay us. They don't want to give us cash for the per diem, but they had a martini bar. We were up on
The first week they're drinking martinis. I'm eating lobster tails.
we're
That's
at
how
Fish
the
Creek
thing
Hill,
should've
and Frank
gone.
comes over to me and says they got a martini bar. And I had to go over and look at it. It was like a big suitcase thing that came out on a stand, and they make martinis on. I'm like, well, holy crap, they're making martinis while I'm out filming. So, yeah, that was bizarre to me. Have martinis, we'll travel.
I mean, the show would have been better if they would have invited us. Thank you.
Eric will not be to the rendezvous in November because I don't think he can. He will make it again someday. I would think I would really push it if Magnuson would say, hey, I'm going to bring the new wife and the kid down, and we're going to show up at the rendezvous. I would push Eric to show up because me and Woody and Frank go, everybody has to understand the 5 of us have not stood in a room together since the day we left the lobby of the hotel in California. We did not know that was the end of the road for it. Me and Eric and Frank did get together once, and Eric did get together once, and me and Frank and Woody obviously hang out, but we did not realize before the show even really aired that that was the end.
Yeah.
And it was a weird thing later when we weren't doing anything to realize we never really got to sit down and kind of like, oh man, that was cool and stuff. It was really, and there was a lot of, like I said, and I don't mean it's negativity, but it's kind of that negative thing of you're looking for work and shit's not going for you, and you and Eric aren't getting checks and he's getting divorced. We all were in that stuff. He was calling us, we were talking about it, and all that stuff was going on, and it was weird because you go transfer through all that, it transpires, and then a year later, it just suddenly things start to collapse, and you just realize, oh crap. Now you came out the year after for the rendezvous. You and Tara came out and spent time with us, and we got to hang out. But we never thought at the time, oh, this is the end. We're not gonna. The 5 of us are not gonna sit in a room together.
No, because
and
all
chat.
indications were that everything was going great, and history loved the show, and Go Lucky was in a good spot, and all indications were trending upward, and that there was no way we weren't getting a season 2, and that lasted for me for about 2 to 3 years, because they just kept feeding a line of BS to every single one of us that it's coming. What are you going to do? Move on. You have to move on.
Yeah, and the problem is they do it in a way that it's addicting. They just give you something that's there. Now, I do feel grateful to Go Lucky for giving me the opportunity and casting me as the lead. I am very thankful that A&E and History Channel told Go Lucky that's your lead, go with him. The opportunity, and I've gotten opportunities since then to do Unexplained, Unexplored, Beyond Oak Island. That's why I worked with History again, is I felt like doing a production consultant and going back and doing something with them was important to me because I wanted to tell them thank you. And I wanted to work with Prometheus briefly. But it's allowed us opportunities to do stuff, but at the same time, there is a positive side that the friendships we make. I mean, I get to go out and hang out with Frank a lot, because, everyone should take care of an elderly guy that can't hear. And so, but there was the upside and the good side to it all. We had a lot of fun. As you guys can tell, when me and Deleel were together, we were cracking up and just having a good time. So there was all good stuff about it. We won't get into some of the negative stuff anymore on this. But, so there was good stuff. There was bad stuff. The end of the day, to do it again, it's really tough because we've all moved on differently in life, and we also know what it encompasses and takes. They're going to lie to us. They're going to pull the rug off of under us. We are going to say, hey, can we do it this way? They're going to tell us yes and then and lie to us. Everything's going to be smoke and mirrors. We know it ahead of time. We will get through some of it and manage it and change some of the course. But we do know it's not an honest business. They're always going to shine you. And so because of some of that and the way once you sign that piece of paper, they kind of own you to some degree and can try to control your life, that's hard for us in hindsight because we're also looking, what was the payoff for the last 6-7 years? They had us under an 8 one-year contracts. We were kind of locked where if we tried to do something and got a big moment, they could turn around and say, well, we're going to do this. We want you on this. Because they owned us. A&E and History Channel had us on these limited contract things each year where they had first right of refusal, which you had to get permission to do stuff. And I think that's what limited Eric on some other programs and stuff. I think that's what happened is then they go. Now, for some unknown reason, I asked to do things, and they were very cool about it. I got to do Travel Channel, Science Channel, Discovery, and they were always cool. Like, go ahead. So I don't know what the difference is of why it was permissible for me to do it. I don't think I'm any bigger than anybody else involved in doing it. It might be just the right person at the right desk said, oh, yeah, Wayne, yeah, that's no problem. And then some other guy just hated our show, and he saw, well, Eric Deleel, who's that? And he looked it up and said, oh, crap. Nah, screw that guy, you know. But you don't know what it is because we're not in the room. You guys were never on the phone with A&E in history. You were Frank Prather and then Go Lucky. Other than those people dealing with the production, you guys never dealt with anybody from the big networks. And I dealt with them, and they were pretty cool. But then there's that thing where you're so disconnected because you don't know what those guys are like, the big bosses, because you have to deal with the little boss that's there. And even then, Julie Arbach, who was very cool, and Tina Gazzaro Clapp, it was Tina Gazzaro Clapp, and Bill Costanzo, they were pretty cool with us, and thank you for the opportunity, but they weren't always there. Most of the time, it was Russell or Glenn or someone on set with us. So Oak Island is just a place to prepare boats. Okay, well, Oak Island did 5 episodes, and they said, this is really cool. We need to make a show like Curse of Oak Island, Curse of the Superstitions. And that's who we became. And then we were Curse of the Superstitions, and then we were Dead Man's Gold. And then they presented the show, and I showed Trevor on our Facebook or somewhere where the first promo came out. We were called just Superstition Mountains the week before the show came out. And then we became the week of the show, Legend of the Superstition Mountains. So our show went forever. Are you being told you got to get off the live? It's like, time to go, Eric. Got to walk you.
No,
you have to dust or vacuum or something?
No, I'm just getting some texts from my fans that say I still look good on TV.
You still look good on TV. He's very Jesse Pinkman.
I'll take that as a compliment.
No, dude, you're very Aaron Paul. Trevor, do you agree? He's very Aaron Paul.
Take it all day long. That's a compliment. Thank you, Wayne. Go on, continue.
About as dumb as the character, too. But, no.
In the show, really? I don't agree.
Where is Sal, someone else? Sal has nothing to do with our show.
Also, but he did. We competed with them when that show came out.
Not Sal. And, not Sal. Well, no, Oak Island. He's talking Salvador Negadio.
Sal was just premiering the first season, Better Call Saul, on whatever network it is, at Sundays at 9 when we aired. It was one of our main competitors. They won an Emmy. So anyway.
Well, they had like the Emmys and the Oscars on and the Grammys on when our show was running too. We still pulling 2 million people, and they're putting those shows on against us. So we still do good. All right. They're like pressing your wheels. I don't know.
I need 2 minutes. We had 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, no, you got. Are you leaving for 2 minutes, or do we have 2 minutes left and you left?
Sarah, you go on for me.
No. I'll be right back.
I don't know what the hell. Anybody catch that? Yeah, we need to wrap up because I need to eat. But what was in the Batcave? Well, we'll ask them that and wrap up on that. They sound like some of the music agencies. Yeah, music business. The music business is very similar to the entertainment. It's a little different tweaks and stuff, but it's very similar. Take it from me. It's very similar. The difference is you can independently as a musician make some money and kind of have some control and stuff. The problem is in the movie production, just average guy cannot make his own album and do all that stuff and all. All right, we're going to wrap up because I got to eat dinner. You should eat too, because if you're drinking that beer on an empty stomach, I know you get really lightheaded and pass out pretty easy.
I don't think that'll be an issue, Wayne, but thank you for...
Anyways, okay. So anyways, everybody goes, what was in the Batcave? And if you say Batman and Robin, then you're like, I'll just cut you off.
Well, Wayne, you weren't in there, so you can't tell them an honest
Well, no,
answer.
these people are asking you. I tell them, I don't know. I only see what's in the picture. I saw the cross. You with a GoPro. You were up there. You didn't seem to like the whole incident and stuff. And we didn't drag out and talk about it because we all went our own separate ways, and then we're supposed to come back and do another season.
And we did.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what happens. And then Eric doesn't have the GoPro, We don't have any footage or any photographs other than what we can
Nothing.
find on TV. So we're kind of left like you guys are. We're in the same place with Eric's weed, beer-addled memory of things.
So this is what was in the bat cave. A lot of bag guanos, some dead bats, some live bats, some very tight spaces, a silver cross that I've heard is no longer in there, and I can't confirm it was actually made of silver, but a giant ladder that you wouldn't want to climb, and a smell that you'll never be able to get out of your memory.
And Mrs. Deleel, I'm joking about your son's weed addiction and his alcoholism. He's actually a fine, upstanding young man. Well, I saw your mom posted it. I got to be cool about it because your mom's cool. How she had a son like you, I don't know.
I mean, the question would be is how did I get an amazing mother like her?
Yeah, you have a cool mom. Yeah. Your mom was, my dad never really watched the show. I told him about it, and then I tried to ask him some questions about it, and I realized he never even really watched it. So most of us, well, I'm sure Frank's parents aren't around. Woody's mom was. But the weird part is you actually had a mom that was supportive of watching the show and she was a fangirl of you.
My mom and dad loved the show, and they were nothing but supportive, and I owe, my successes in life to both of them. But also, there's a lot of people watching right now that, they're watching us right now that, they watched the show 8 years ago. And, I appreciate every one of their support, and they know who they are. So I'm nothing but thankful.
Was that your dog that just walked across the couch like a cat?
This is Boone. Say hi.
Hey,
he's a good
hey,
guy. He's a good little guy. But yeah, he just makes the houses.
Yeah, I thought it was a cat up on the couch, and then I realized when he jumped out.
We don't have any cats.
Well,
it's my little adventure buddy.
Okay, that's your adventure. But what? Okay, I won't say it. I'm gonna be nice to you because I know you like your little dogs. Okay, but someday you're gonna be a real man and get a real dog that weighs over like 12 pounds.
Well, I'm good because he's like 16. So
it's just Well, I understand you made less money than me at the show,
so I could only afford to feed
you can't afford a big dog with big food bills. Yes, okay. So
exactly. That was it.
Your mom's saying hi to the dog. She never said hi to me. I don't think she said hi to you. She said she was watching, but she says hi to the dog the moment the dog makes a cameo. Yeah, the dog. All right, we're going to wrap up because we could do this for probably another half hour to an hour and just have a good time. Eric will get drunk. I'll get hungrier. And then I'll get really mean and nasty, and the jokes will get to the point where Eric starts saying, you know what? You're starting to hurt my feelings, dude. And I'll say, good. And then I'll just continue. So we don't need to do that, but I'm hoping.
Then somebody will give us another reality TV show, so it'll all be worth it, right?
Well, you never know what's going to happen and whatever's going to kind of turn and how things would go. It wouldn't surprise me. They've done it before. They flipped it. I pitched to the history. Why don't you bring every show and do a reunion show? 42 minutes of where are they now kind of thing. Bring everybody in town. It takes one day to do it. You could do probably a couple shows in a day. And it'd be very cool to bring different groups back from different programs. And then you could get a test rating on the audience of what they liked the most. And you might want to go revisit that. And that went on deaf ears. So I come up with decent ideas and then push them out there. What they want to do with anything is their own business. And when they want to kind of throw stuff off and not get back to us with stuff, that's fine. I know COVID messed everything up. COVID slowed it down to a crawl because I was doing stuff constantly and then COVID, boom. And now things are slowly picking back up because I finally got to do a couple lectures. Well, I got to do 3 lectures last fall. And now I'm getting lecture requests again because there was nothing when COVID hit. I mean, they weren't filming. I mean, I did Beyond Oak Island and Unexplained, Unexplored just before COVID hit. It hit and everything slammed shut. So they called me a big dog. There you go. No, it's not pizza. We're going to go to Firehouse Subs, right? Yeah, I want Firehouse Subs tonight because they have that barbecue Firehouse Sub. So Friday nights is generally pizza night, but sometimes I want something different. You know how it is, Eric. And I don't want to go to Subway, which would be kind of remembering you because we went to Subway.
Bring it full circle.
Yeah, I want to do Firehouse because they have that really killer barbecue with all the onions and stuff and peppers. Man, that thing's good.
So Wayne, do you remember the one quote you said I was never allowed to say on camera? Because it's perfectly, it'd be perfect right now. It's
No, I don't know what I told you not to say. There's so
favorite
much
actor.
I told you not to say and do.
No.
but-
It's your favorite actor, John Wayne.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to say those words. Those are my words.
Then you say them.
You're not allowed to say that stuff. No,
Then
that's-
you say them and wrap it up.
Yeah, we're burning daylight. It's time to saddle up and get out of here, man. Yeah, Eric tried to use that one time on camera, and I said, dude, you don't do that. No, know your place. You're not the saddle
man,
up,
no.
we're burning daylight guy. And he didn't try it anymore. No, so we got it in there. But no, thank you, everybody. We had a good crowd. We're doing really good. The Facebook stuff, and we're working on those episodes for stuff where me and Frank have been in the desert, got stopped by COVID. But we're still doing the Chasing Legends on Monday and the lives. This brings us with Woody Wampler and then Eric Deleel. And next up, we're going to try to bring in either Eric Magnuson or Frank Augustine, the very X-rated Frank Augustine. So we'll have Frank. We're thinking about having Frank in his bathtub live. I mean, as strange as that sounds, he might go for it. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm sure Eric thanks you and stuff. It was nice seeing him and Tara in the background briefly and stuff, and meeting Boone, because we don't get to always connect. We connect, and usually it's at work, and we have to get off the phone after a short time. So,
True.
yeah, and down here on my screen it says Wayne and Tara Legree, and it's not Tara, it's Eric. So, yes.
I am Eric Deleel.
He's Eric
That is
Deleel.
terrible.
So anyways, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll be back with new content on Monday. The Rendezvous comes up the 4th, 5th, and 6th of November. Jesse Feldman will be guest speaking that night. We got we're going to do probably Friday night a special, maybe private screening of Sunsets, the Dutch Hunter movie that Trevor produced. And then we might do a sneak preview of it because of the music festivals. There are certain things we can and cannot do with the film.
Not
What?
music festival. You said
Music, what?
You said music festival. It's film.
Film festivals. Okay, sorry. But anyways, because of that, we're very limited on that stuff. But we want everybody to get tastes of it. So if you're out there, you might get a special treat on that. But that all being said and done, we're going to get ready to get out of here, Eric. Anything you want to wrap up and say before we go? Because it's been a time and we've had a blast.
No, it's good hanging with you, Wayne. Thank you for everybody who watched, and thank you for everybody who watched the show over the years and who's still here today. You might want to tell everybody what the dates are on the Dutch Hunters Rendezvous as well. But other than that, thank you, Wayne. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to your son. You guys have been gracious hosts as always, and I'd love to do this again with you sometime.
No problem. Someday you'll grow up and be a big boy and you can afford a Les Paul or a Stratocaster like me.
Well, I figure you'll leave me one in your will. Maybe just one. Just kidding.
All right, so everybody, here we are. We're getting ready to sign off. It was thank you, everybody that joined us, and we will catch you up. It will be uploading up to YouTube, and then we'll be spreading and sharing it, all the love out on Facebook. Catch us all during the week. Thank you, Eric A. Deleel, the real Deleel, the only
Thank you
Deleel
all.
I actually know in person. And remember, this is the most important thing we sign off with, Eric. It's no longer saddle up, we're burning daylight. No, it's remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Legends Live on Friday. So thank you, everybody, and everyone. Have a good night as I try to do this tricky shit of getting off of here.
No, doing it wrong.
I'm doing it wrong again.
Thank you all.
What? Okay, I got to click this screen. God, this is like the worst delay of everything, and the stream is ending, and I hit end, and God.